Brett Allen here. Thanks for watching and listening. Today we're chatting with comedian Danny Jolles about You Choose, an interactive comedy special. Thanks so much for your time. I've been a huge fan, and I'm excited to chat with you today.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I will tell the listeners that I was late, and Brett has made me feel very nice. He's been very nice about it. He hasn't made me feel guilty at all, and so it not just is an honor to be here, but I apologize for being late.
It's all good. It's all good. So this is a very unconventional comedy special because typically it's an hour 45, whatever. You're on a stage, you're in front of a curtain, not to be, but it's usually just a straight hour of comedy, right?
Yes,
And we joked about Neil Brennan earlier, but like and even him, it's still a little bit more calculated.
but I've been referencing his specials actually, because even his new one too, of somebody who is doing a special that's special. Like Neil
Yeah, it's
Brennan
different.
is somebody who I looked to when I was creating this one, and even my first one, which isn't a standard one, of being like, hey, this is somebody doing a special that isn't just like everyone else's, and isn't that kind of cool? And he's been very inspirational. So in all seriousness, Neil Brennan is somebody who I think does this.
Yeah, and it's available to stream on YouTube,
Mhm.
you know, which I think is great. I think we'll get into that here at the end of our conversation about, the whole where am I going to put this at? How much access am I going to allow fans to have? And I think if you do it this way, you really can control. I mean, the true fans get to participate, but I don't want to get too far ahead. So typically, as we say, sort of in a joking way, it's an hour worth of comedy. You're going from premise to premise or subject to
You
subject.
just film a show.
You
All
film
you're
a
going to do is
show. Yeah,
film a
you're
show.
filming a show, but this one you
Mhm.
allow the audience to a point, it seems, sort of pick and choose where you're going to go with things. So my first question would then be, do you have just different bits in your pocket that you can sort of reference if somebody chooses one of the topics? How do you go about that in particular and sort of still maintain control, I guess, would be the first question.
So so in the special itself, or when I was doing it live?
Just in general,
Hello?
live when you're filming
Yeah.
the special, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So when we filmed the special, the way we did it was we filmed one way all the way through.
Okay.
So one version of the special, and so people listening, you pick my opinion throughout the special. It is a choose your own adventure, if you will. Um, so throughout the special, so we basically would film it one way all the way through. Then I would do the ending. Then I go back and do the other side, and then I would flip it.
Okay.
So I would do the complete other side. And that's how we filmed it live. When I would do it on the road, the way I would do it was I would do one way through. Then I would basically do this bit where, like, if I was doing a show in like Arizona, I'd be like, Arizona, I feel like you guys actually, it's like I said, I did that whole thing about loving Dave Blaine, but I feel like you guys hate. I'm gonna do it again, and I just would do the other side, and it became this like fun audience participation thing. I tried a couple times where I was like, "You guys pick live," and I found it was not. It didn't work.
Okay.
People, it was too much discussion. People would. It was just like you just would kill all momentum, like as a stand up. So I was like, let's just keep it moving. But that's how I would do it. And then writing the jokes was a nightmare, obviously, second to none, that I'll never go through again.
Yeah, I would imagine, because that brings me to my next question. So then for you, I mean, the special is a lot of fun. It's kind of interesting to sort of see how you work through this and still maintain control, and it doesn't become, a group session, so to speak, where now everybody's just yelling stuff out, which
Mm-hmm.
is polar opposite of what you want as a comic, I'm guessing. I'm not a comedian, but I've spent a lot of time talking to comedy folks, comedians, and so I get it. So now, I mean, the writing process for you, do you write jokes and then go to the club? Do you do theaters? How do you sort of process all of this to get it boiled down to, say, the hour or the hour and a half, however you're going to go about it in this particular case, the way that you did it?
To me, the key to doing a fun hour to doing like any sort of special, be it this kind of special, be it Neil Brennan's Three Mics, be it whatever, is there has to be a version that you do live that is enjoyable for a crowd, because that's how we do most of our stuff, right? I go to a club and I do a performance. I can't go on stage and be like, guys, this is going to make sense when you see the final thing, but this is just going to kind of suck tonight. Like, like you can't do that. You have to go on stage and be like, this is going to be. So I just didn't tell anyone what I was doing.
Okay.
I would just do shows, and, particularly like in LA, like, you do 10, 15, 20-minute sets. I would just do a show where I love David Blaine, and I would do a bunch of the jokes. Then the next time, and then maybe the second show I would do hate David Blaine, blah, blah, blah. And, comics started picking up on it a little. Like my comics would definitely like see me and be like, are you doing like like what is happening?
Interesting.
Like what are you doing? Because I heard you talk about David Blaine, but it was completely different. And it was me, because I also just didn't know if this would work. Like I wrote the last joke first.
Okay.
Which is like kind of, to use a magic term, the prestige of this special. It's a reveal. And so I was like, all right, it would be I wrote that joke and I was like, it'd be really cool and kind of prove the point of the joke if I could pull this off. But I didn't know if I could pull this off. We didn't even know it was technologically, but we didn't know anything. And I was like, well, I'm not going to like ruin everybody's life working on it that way. So instead, all I did was I just kind of like wrote jokes and just quietly was working on it. And then probably 3 flips in, when I had three jokes where I had both sides, I kind of for the first time started telling people like, I think I'm trying to do this thing, and like, start talking to like, Matthew Broussard and some of my favorite comedy writer friends to be like, hey man, can I run you through like a joke I'm working on, and can you help me come up with the other side? And like we just started, I just started going on stage and working on it, and it just slowly built. And then the last 2 took me forever. It was a nightmare. I could not get it was such a nightmare to do.
Wow. Well, it turned out fantastic. And
Thanks,
I
man.
really do mean that. It's just really funny. So I imagine your peers, I want to touch on that a little bit because I know, you know, comics among comics can be very interesting, dynamic, without getting too specific, because they start watching and seeing what you're doing. Are they going, is he just trying to be ironic here? And I mean, was it like one of those things where they're kind of like, you don't have to mention names,
No,
but I'm just very curious because I imagine they're probably, like you said, watching and going, trying to understand your angle, because there's always an angle in comedy, or a point of view.
yeah, and without me saying like it's going to be a choose your own, like I think we're in a period right now with stand up where there's a lot of people doing kind of this, right? There's the formula right now to the internet that any of us can do, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go on stage. I've almost described it as comics are turning into clowns on top of a dunk tank, where it's like we're just trying to have a crazy interaction.
Yeah.
The more crazy interactions I have a weekend, the better, because I'll clip them. It's going to work great. That's what the internet wants. And so, but I don't think anybody's proud of it. People are doing it. I don't think anybody. So honestly, comics were so supportive because comics were like, will this work? So many comics were curious about, will it work? And so many comics were like, it's cool. The comedy world, I will endlessly defend.
Yeah.
And I will say this, comics were so supportive. Comics were like, that's awesome, you're doing this. Comics wanted to succeed. I was supported by so many comics who were like, dude, like trying to help me. I would open for comics. That was really helpful. It was opening for comics in particular, big comics, because I would do one show one way, because it's only 20, 25, 30 minutes before them. I'll do one show one way, one show the other way. So I'd actually get to run the special like I was doing it. And it was so great. And I loved that. That was like the best, was like, yeah. And so no, comics were incredible to me. Like, and even like Taylor Thomas and Sam Morril, like these people who let me open for them and let me basically, because at a certain point, once I knew particularly what I was going to do for the special and how I was going to have to film it, they were helping me basically run the filming by letting me do one side. It was great. They were so, so no, comics were incredible. They're the best.
Yeah, that's great. I can't imagine why they wouldn't be, especially, I mean, there's just like this camaraderie that you have, period, with comedians. And it's just like, as you made the reference to like a magic trick or an illusion. I don't know if you're familiar with Wayne Fetterman, but he wrote a book,
Yes.
The History of
Of
Comedy,
course.
and we had him on last year when the book released. And he said something interesting at the end of the conversation where if you watch a comedian go on stage and you watch them perform, if you watch it enough as a comedy nerd like me, you kind of sort of figure out the trick of how it
Yes.
works, and I'm not saying I could do it necessarily, because I know that drives comedians crazy when they say I could do that, but I can watch it and go, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes perfect sense to me. And the effortless hours that you put, into a 2 or 3 minute story is crazy. Economy of words, pacing. I mean, all of it is just fascinating.
But I also listen. I don't do magic, but I watch a lot of magic, and now I understand present, turn, prestige. I understand how they're doing a lot of, because I really structure some comedy after magic. I think magic is really a good way to structure jokes.
Yeah.
And I like love that shit. But I can't do magic. But you still get it. Like, I do think people who watch a ton of stand up, yeah, and particularly in 2022, where everybody's going on every podcast and breaking down the art form to such a degree that I'm like, is there literally any mystery left? Like, I yell about that all the time. I'm like, can we pretend that we have an art form here that we don't want to just give away every secret on?
Right. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because Steve Burns said something very similar. We had him, when the pandemic first started, and he said, it's interesting. It's like there has to be a little bit of mystery to it and mystique, so to speak,
Yes.
because otherwise, why spend 35, 40, 50 bucks and go to a club? But again, there you're getting this conjoining experience that's just, you cannot compare it to. Well, one last question here. I do want to ask you, when you are creating things and you decide that let's talk about your bit. It's probably from a few specials ago about bros. You love bros.
Yes.
When you're doing things like that, how do you start? And maybe we're breaking things down too intimately.
No. I'll break it down. I'll break it down. So that one, the first joke that was written in, I remember because I still have it saved on my phone in my notes, was bros are dogs, hipsters are cats. That was the first thing I wrote down in that joke. And then it's building from there, right? It's this idea of bros are dog, hipsters are cats. And then I came up with this thing of just like bros. I had this interaction with a bro so the true thing was, I used to go to this, now the team is called the Commanders. So my DC sports football team, I would go to their bar. There was a bar in LA that you could go to, and it's just, I'd be surrounded by bros, and I loved them. And there was this bro behind me. He was drunk. He had a backwards hat, loud fucking. Can I curse on this?
You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Loud dude, like just like, and just like the type of bro you would hate the most. And he was behind me, and he said, he's franking out to me. He's like, "How you doing, man?" He was so drunk, and he goes, "Man, let me tell you something. I got an amazing girlfriend. I got a great job. I got great friends. I'm just so happy to be alive." And I just remember being like, "That's the best. That was such a like, it just warmed my heart." And I was like, bros aren't so bad. And so then I took that and I went to like, they can communicate things. And then literally like so that joke is a great example of a magic trick joke. It's structured like a magic trick. And even more so, to me, the greatest joke, maybe greatest stand-up joke I've written, is How Old Is 15 Really by Dave Chappelle, where he goes, he says this offensive thing that everybody disagrees with. Then he explains it to a point where you agree with it. And you go, yeah, 15 is young. By the end of that joke, you're like, yeah, 15 is young. We believe 15 is young. And then he goes, because the whole joke's about Elizabeth Smart. She's so young. She couldn't help herself. She's so young. She's 15. She couldn't escape because she's 15. We all agree. By the end of that, so halfway through that joke, when he's at the turn of the magic trick, we all agree, yeah, 15 is so young. And then he goes, and now it's a young black kid, and he accidentally kills us, and we give him life in prison. And it's just this like, oh, like you
Yeah.
just, it's just such a powerful joke. So I just remember being like, if I can get everyone to agree bros are great and bros have a way of communicating better and hipsters are bad, I can make this point advocating for transgender bathrooms. And I think it's going to work. And it's not going to be preachy because you've agreed on so many little issues already. It doesn't feel preachy. The best part about the bros joke, the best part about the end of this special, which, spoiler alert, advocates for transgender rights as well,
Yeah.
is I've done it in Kentucky. I've done it in Canada. I've done it in every place. And they agree with it because you've agreed with so much of what I've said up until that moment. You can't help but kind of hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I take the most pride in any joke is, can you make a point at the end that the other side will actually listen to by not yelling at them, by not preaching, and instead walking that middle line and then right at the end going, and if we all can agree on this, can we all agree that we probably should let people just live their life?
Yeah.
And it's like, that shit works. So the bro joke was great. And then, by the way, one final fun fact of the bro joke. I was doing that joke for a while and it was working, singing, had it. And I would go, we need to send those progressive bros into middle America armed. And I had been working this joke for months, 6 months. I mean, it was a joke to me a long time. And Jessica Michelle Singleton, who's a comic, saw me do it. And I was like, I walked off stage like it killed, crushed, it was really working at this point. And I walked off stage like, and Sheila was like, you're the stupidest person I've ever met. And I was like, what? She goes, you don't want to say progressives in the joke? And I was like, wow. And that's one of the massive final punchlines. And that was Jessica Michelle Singleton being like, I just was so focused on the structure and the art and what am I trying to say? And I just missed. I said progressive bros 700 times and never said progressives. And
Wow.
she was the one who like kicked that thing to the last level.
I love
Shout
it.
out Jessica Michelle Singleton.
Yes. Well, everybody, please be sure to check out the special.
Please.
You Choose.
Please.
It's streaming on YouTube, and I'm sure through your website people connect that way.
If you look up You Choose Danny Jolles on YouTube, you will find it. If you type my name into anything, you will find it. It is not hard to find, I promise. We have made it. We put it on YouTube because we want people to see it. I understand I could have put it on a streamer and we would never know the views and we would never know the things. And it would just be, but I want every single person to have access to this thing. And I want people to see it. And I want it to be a really fun night. I think it's unique. You've never gone through a special like it.
I love it. Fantastic work, my friend. Again, coming at this from a lot of ways, but most importantly, just a fan. And I was very happy when the opportunity came about. So thank you so much, Danny. I really do appreciate your time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.